Let's have a look now at the impact of that incident in Bloemfontein on tourism in the province of the Free State. I'm joined now by Thandiwe Matibela, SA Tourism General Manager for Communications. Thandiwe, thank you for your time. I know this has been a month about emphasizing reconciliation and tourism as a tool to do that. Your initial thoughts on that video and the altercation between those grown adult men and the teenagers?
Good afternoon, Erin, and good afternoon to all the viewers. It is devastating, to say the least, that we're still dealing with these kind of incidents. And this is something that from a South African tourism, we are very clear. We cannot stand by and watch this happen and go on. We are currently on a mission to get South Africans to travel their own country. We've got our Give Me Some of That Short Left campaign, and we're encouraging South Africans to travel their own country. And therefore, having South Africans having to face these kind of experiences really does not work.
Thandiwe, thank you. I mean, in your statement, which you issued condemning this incident, you note that Marshalspoort Resort and Conference Centre is not graded by the Tourism Council of South Africa. What work does the council do to inform businesses about how to manage these sorts of situations and indeed conscientize owners about anti-racism?
Certainly, as South African tourism and the greater tourism industry as a whole, we've got a whole lot more work that we need to do. Obviously, as the Tourism Grading Council of South Africa, there are certain criteria that we look at, and then we allocate different stars based on the various criteria that we do have. What we've learned from this incident, in fact, what this incident has highlighted is that we've got a bigger job to do in terms of uniting the greater industry so that, one, as an establishment owner, you do know what to do if patrons are actually behaving in this manner. And of course, hopefully that no established owners actually ever behave in this manner. And if they do, we must be able to bring them to book.
So in a situation like this, the business doesn't fall under the council. But in terms of tourism more broadly, I suppose there is the question of when racist policies, spoken or unspoken, might actually be, in a limited way, good for business. So that feed into a kind of racist ideology. How do you counter that in your work and engagements with South African businesses to use tourism and travel as a tool for integration, for learning about different cultures and demographics and regions of the country?
In fact, even the UNWTO is very clear when they describe what inclusivity is. It's really about people first. I think what is important to state here is that as South Africans, we really need to be able to take care of each other, look after each other, embrace each other before we can even open our arms and our homes and our establishments to the greater part of the world. Because I can just imagine if I was coming from outside of South Africa and I see how South Africans are treating each other, I basically wouldn't be attracted to come to the country. So as South African tourism, the custodians of marketing the country as a tourism destination, both from a business and a leisure perspective, it is in our interest that we actually educate the industry and that we partner with the industry to totally and unequivocally condemn such incidents. We cannot have this in our industry. And certainly as South African tourism will take this seriously. We do have an email address that we have posted. It is the feedback@tourismgrading.co.za. We encourage South Africans to continue to report such incidents. What's really encouraging about this particular incident is that the MEC took it upon himself, the MEC in the Free State took it upon himself to ensure that the perpetrators are removed from the property at first, but also to make sure that this is reported and that then this becomes a criminal case. In that way, we actually set the tone to say this cannot be tolerated.
Thandiwe, I think you've raised a really good point there. It's a conversation we're having on two levels. The one is in terms of local South African travel and how many South Africans of colour seeing that video will be put off from going to the Free State, never mind going to Marshalspoort Resort and Conference Centre. But then, of course, travellers from further afield, our fellows in Zimbabwe, Kenya, Nigeria, African Americans, Britons of color, people in Europe, maybe with ties to South Africa. How much reputational damage does something like this do, especially if it goes unchecked?
What we do know from our research, because we do always interact with the travelers that come here, we also interact with our partners that are in different parts of the world. We do know that as a country, we have to be seen as being warm and welcoming. And again, I just want to emphasize that it starts with us. You know, people from outside of the world will never believe that we're warm and welcoming if we're not kind and embracing of each other. So it does have a very negative impact, and it cannot go unchecked any longer. And that is what we're saying as South African tourism. We are so pleased that steps have been taken, and it cannot go unremedied. We do know that not only does this need to be obviously punished in inverted commas, we do have to remedy this for the future. We have to educate each other as a country. A lot of work has gone into making sure that we are more embracive of each other, but certainly this incident indicates that a whole lot more work needs to be done, and we need to do it as the greater industry.
So, Thandiwe, we spoke earlier about this business not being part of the council's, I think it's some 4,000 businesses nationwide. But if Marcelspoort were under the South African Tourism Council and came to you, having had this incident now occur, asking for guidance on how to right the wrongs of what's happened, to deal with the fallout, and indeed to ensure that the resort and conference centre can still keep going, what advice would you give to the business?
Certainly, we do have a partnership with the Department of Tourism where we work with them in ensuring that tourism establishments correct these kind of things. So we would work together with the Department of Tourism to ensure that we advise them. What would be great about that scenario actually would be the fact that the establishment would come forward and acknowledge, their shortcomings and actually seek help. That is something that we would actually encourage a lot of establishments to also do. So certainly we would partner with them in correcting their wrongs if ever they were to come to us. And certainly we would partner with anyone else, whether it be a patron or an establishment in whatever nature of the hospitality industry they're in, because it is a collective effort. Each and every South African needs to make sure that they play their part, because the country belongs to all of us. There is no establishment or experience that is reserved for a particular race, and that is what we would need to all together work towards.
Thank you. You highlighted the Free State MEC for Economic, Small Business Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs. What a mouthful. Makhwalo Mohale, who has spoken about this and the fact that law enforcement is now involved. The accused have not yet appeared in court as yet. And we obviously saw in our package some of the sentiments of those two teenagers who are now dealing with the trauma of having that on their Christmas day. But what does it mean to have had the Minister of Tourism speak on this issue and issue a formal statement? Also addressing the issue and how it interfaces with tourism?
I think it's a very positive and important step because it obviously adds gravitas to the matter, and it shows that the matter is taken very seriously at very high levels of our office, and that for me, that's what it means.
Thanks, Thandiwe. We're going to round off now, but if you could just underline one point about the theme of the campaign you've been doing these last weeks, what would it be?
The theme of the campaign that we've been doing, our campaign is called the Give Me Summer Short Left campaign. We are actually trying to get South Africans to travel their own country, and South Africans have been traveling their own country. We know anecdotally at this point, because we do not have the numbers to back it up, that South Africans have come out in their numbers, going out to explore the different parts of our country, and that is why we cannot have such incidents when we've invited South Africans to go out and travel their own country. So we continue to saying it is your country. Every South African, it's your country. Enjoy it, because nothing is more fun than a short left.
Thandiwe Matibela there, SA Tourism General Manager for Communications. Thank you so much